All right, welcome back. This is exciting. This is we're back for the first time in just over 6 months now. So there's a few stop and starts, but here we are. We're officially back, and I can't think of a way to kick off the new version of the show, the new format, than an interview with quite frankly, one of the best young talents that you may not have heard of. We have the former EHF Women's Champion, the and Emerge Women's Champion, and as of last night, the new Intense Championship Wrestling Women's Champion, the Barbie Killer, Hayley Shadows. How are you doing, Hayley? Thanks for joining us today.
I'm doing good. Thank you for having me.
No problem. It's an honor. We saw some of your work recently, and but go a little off format because, like I said, you worked a show last night for ICW at their September to Remember event. Before I talk about your match, I actually want to commend you because I saw on your social media taking a stand once you learned that IK3 was on the show. For those that don't really know a lot about that situation, if you would, could you talk a little bit about that and what happened?
It's just a situation where a lot of women came forward when the whole speaking out movement came, and unfortunately, this individual got called out for everything that, well, maybe not even everything, but a lot of things that he's done to females and fans over the years. And me and another performer that were on the show actually rode there together, and it was about almost a 4-hour drive. When we get there, the first person we see is him. And like, all respect aside to the promoter, they weren't really aware because they're not big on social media and stuff, so they were not aware of the situation with him. Me and this other performer let him know, and as soon as we did, some of the guys in the locker room had our back too, and we pretty much flat out was like, it's either he's on the show or we're not, because me and this other performer, we take wrestling very seriously, and we really believe that every single locker room should be safe and should not be any type of platform for molesters or rapists, and that's what this guy is.
Hmm.
So the promoter ended up making him leave. He had his gear and everything on. He didn't even get time to change. They booted him out, and me and the other performer ended up staying. But it was a mixture of doing the right thing for the locker room, but more so doing the right thing for the women that he abused. And at this point, like, I really don't care who you are. I don't care what kind of platform or name you have. There's no room for people like that in a locker room or outside of a locker room. And me and this other performer, we have no place or heart for it. So pretty much anybody like that, I have no business being in the same room with.
No, absolutely, and that's like I said, that's definitely commendable for you and the other performer. Did you not know that he was booked when you until you arrived at the arena and saw him?
No, that he was not on the flyer. He was not advertised, and he actually changed his wrestling name because he completely got blacklisted. Like, nobody wants him on a show. So when he got booked, it was under a totally different name, and I wasn't even aware of that. I didn't even know he wrestled or tried to wrestle anymore. So it was like, as soon as I saw him, he completely turned around and went in the other room, and that right there just like stood out. Like, okay, yeah, you fucked up. You shouldn't be here. And when I talked to the promoter, he was like, I had no idea. And you could tell he was sincere. I've worked for this promoter for a couple years now, and he's a very sincere, sweet guy, and he just wants like the best show that he can put on, and he had no idea. And I mean, even if like he gave him a totally different name anyway, so even if he was to look that up, I don't think it's made it viral yet to link the two names together. So that's why I posted what I did, just because I want everyone to be safe at the end of the day. And I know that there's a lot of women that travel alone, and I know that there's a lot of younger talent or younger fans at shows, And the last thing I want to do is give him another victim to ruin, basically. So.
Right. No, that's great, and just to reiterate, definitely commendable for you to take a stand, even if if knowing that if they had said, well, I'm keeping him on there, you would have walked out and lost time and money there too. So definitely
Right.
good on you there. Now also at the show, you became the new ICW Women's Champion. Who did you work with, and how was the match?
I actually was in a triple threat with Celine and Randy West, and the match was good. I've wrestled Randy probably close to 8 or 9 years. I wrestled with her at multiple promotions, and then Celine, I've wrestled her at this promotion and a few other promotions over the past couple of years. So it wasn't any new situation. It was just, there was three of us instead of just a one-on-one match. But, I had to do what I had to do to get the win, and I did. So I'm grateful.
Do you prefer like one-on-ones, or do you prefer like the multi-person matches?
Honestly, I don't know. To me, it really doesn't matter just because you can get creative in any aspect, really. One-on-ones, you can always be a little creative there, but I feel like at the same time, the more people you have in the match, the more you can play around and really see what you can do, too.
Great, yeah, for sure. There's also like there's a certain old school fan in me that I kind of prefer the one-on-one, but there's things in a one-on-one that you can't see that you do in three or four ways.
Right, yeah, for sure.
Much like your very first match, which was an 8-woman match for OVW with Jessie Bell, December, Epiphany, Josette Bynum, Scarlett, and Taylor Hendricks. What are your memories of that match? And such a diverse group of talent in that match too.
Oh, yeah. So technically, that was my second or my third match, actually. It was just like that was the first one that was like on TV for OVW, I guess. But either way, I was still pretty new. But I mean, it was nerve-wracking, honestly. I was like 18, 19, and really trying to figure out who I was and what I was trying to do. And then you have people like Taylor Hendricks and Scarlett, and I believe Heidi Lovelace was in that match too. And you have Jessie Bell Smothers. You have all these women that had a couple years on me, or more than a couple at that time, and they all knew the ropes when I was just trying to learn how to really get in the ropes, really. So it was nerve-wracking, but it was a really cool experience, and I got to learn a lot from all those women. So being 18, 19, and just like to learn, I was really grateful to be able to work with all of them.
Definitely. Now, going back even before that, did you grow up a wrestling fan? And if so, who are some of your favorites?
Oh, yeah. I started watching wrestling when I was about a year and a half, and it was love at first sight. And I knew at that age that that's what I wanted to do. So I grew up watching wrestling pretty much my entire life. My all-time favorite wrestler is Stone Cold Steve Austin. He's the first person I saw on TV that got me intrigued into wanting to wrestle. And then as I got older, Chyna, the Hardy Boys, Edge, Triple H, Eddie Guerrero, a huge fan of all of them. And as I got older and training and just wrestling and stuff, I became more of a fan of them and their art form of it, not just the presentation when they came out. So I study a lot of all of them now.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I have a similar story. I got into it as very young too. I was a little bit older than you. I was about 4 years old, but it was my grandfather who got me into it. So kind of like a lifelong love affair, same way.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Did your family support you getting into wrestling?
Oh yeah. I don't think they really had much of a choice because they knew either way I was gonna my mom and my grandparents have been extremely supportive. Anytime, I'm doing something bigger like on TV or I win a championship or whatever, it's almost like as soon as the post comes out, my entire family starts sharing it. And I'm from a really small town in upstate New York, and pretty much a lot of our antique stores and diners and stuff like that have pictures of me up.
Oh,
And
wow.
our radio shack back home at one point was playing my matches on all of their TVs they were selling. So it's kind of cool having that kind of like local fame, I guess. Every time I get to come home, everyone's super proud and supportive. So I'm really grateful for that.
That's great. That's really good to hear. Um, who was it that trained you?
Nick Dinsmore
Yeah.
at OVW in 2012, 2014.
How did you get hooked up or find him?
I made a post on Twitter when I first got a Twitter, I'd say probably 2010, around the time I graduated, and I messaged a bunch of women wrestlers, and the only one that replied was Victoria from WWE, and she encouraged me and pushed me to try to go to college first, which I did not, because I was very eager to wrestle. But looking back on it now, I appreciate her trying to be like a mom. So if she ever listens to this, I appreciate it. But she told me to go to OVW in Louisville, Kentucky. So I got their phone number and I talked to Nick, and my mother and I and my little brother, we drove the 12 hours and stayed in Louisville for about a week. And I got to watch one of the OVW house shows, and I got to sit in on like 2 days of Nick training and just watch and I guess just figure out if that's really what I wanted to do. And then a couple months later, I made the move to Louisville and haven't really looked back since.
I love that story about Victoria because we just love Victoria here, but also
Oh, yeah.
it's just as a teenager you're always thinking, well, that's how they used to do it. Things aren't like that anymore, and more often than not, the adults are usually right.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Now, since you debuted, you've changed up your look and name on occasion. What's the philosophy behind this, and do you have any favorite, I guess, version of yourself?
I'm kind of going in between the half-face paint and the not. And as far as like character work, I guess like the half-face paint is more demonic and angry, and then the version with no face paint is just bitter at the world and a huge chip on my shoulder and just like a short fuse. And I guess like both of those are equal sides of me. It just depends on the company and what the fans are used to seeing as far as like me and stuff as that promotion goes. But I don't know. I don't think I necessarily have a favorite because I feel at home in like both sets. I think both sides of that character I get to have a lot of freedom and playtime and really just try to figure out, okay, if I have face paint on and I'm crawling around and I have like this half mask on, I'm not really saying too much. I'm just angry and I'm vicious. But then the other one, I get to be more vocal and very loud about my emotions, vocally and physically. So both characters are a lot of fun. I don't know if I have a favorite because both of them I think are a lot of fun for me to do. But yeah, I don't know. I'm just right now just trying to play around and just see what sticks and what I like and everything. So I'm having fun right now with both.
Yeah, definitely. Um, Now, do you have a favorite person that you've worked with, and if so, who was it and why?
Um, one of my favorite people to work with in the ring is Shauna Reed for sure. we're sisters, we're a tag team, but we're also really great opponents. I've always said she's my wrestling soulmate. I can just look at her from across the ring and know exactly what she's thinking. And it seems like every single time her and I are in a ring together, it's entertaining, it's heartfelt, it's physical, and we always tell a story regardless. So she's definitely one of my top people to always be in the ring with. I also like working Ari Alexander a lot. Ari, I think every time Ari and I work, we bring out the best in each other. Not to mention, we both like to do German suplexes, and we like to do them until the other one can't do them anymore. I like wrestling her a lot. There's another girl that I wrestle, not as often as I like to, but her name's Ella, and she's great too. She has like a darker character and wears like a straight jacket and brings like a doll to the ring and has like this blood curdling horror movie scream that literally will pierce your ears and send chills up your body. But I really enjoy working her too, just because being able to wrestle people character-wise, it's kind of similar. Like you have a different playing ground, I feel, because you're kind of looking in the mirror at that point. So it's intriguing to be able to work with people that have similar characters.
It's always good to have somebody that you enjoy working with, and you know that you can sort of count on as have a good match or a good show with them. I interviewed John Schuyler last year, and he talked about every time he got together with Cash Wheeler, he knew that they were just going to have a crazy great match.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
But your first championship was the Emerge Women's Championship, which you held for a whopping 1,008 days. You actually defeated a friend of the show, Charlie Cruel, for that title. Do you have any memories working with Charlie?
I want to say, I don't think it was Charlie's first match, but probably close to one of her first matches. I believe the first time she ever went to the ring, she actually managed me.
Oh, really?
In Indiana, yeah. She was still training, and she was kind of like a fan at the show. And I went up to her and was like, "Hey, want to manage me?" And I'm pretty sure I worked Randy West at that show. I got to wrestle with Randy that night. But I've seen Charlie pretty much start her first day to where she's at now. And don't get me wrong, maybe it's because I personally don't like Pop-Tarts, but this character thing that she's doing right now, it works. Every crowd she goes to, they're screaming for Pop-Tarts, and they really get behind her. So it's cool to see people just develop into their own and get comfortable in their character work.
Yeah, a lot of times having that thing like the Pop-Tarts kind of works out and sticks out.
Yeah.
And you also held the EHF Women's Championship for 650 days. You beat Jaden Quick for that, but you solely defended that against Mackenzie Black, who's eventually who you lost it to. What about working with Kenzie? How was that?
Kenzie is wonderful. I actually, fun fact, the match that made me champion, she was actually the referee at that point. She was in training, and she repped that match. I want to say I was her first match, I believe, if not one of the first. And Kenzie's another one, a really, really big up-and-comer, and she's getting better every single time I step in the ring with her. She's one of the many few, I think, these days that really just wants to put on a good show and just learn. And she's very hungry, and she's not afraid to be, criticized and be like, hey, you need to work on this more or whatever. But Mackenzie Black is honestly like on the radar. She continues putting in the work, and then the next couple years I see her facing some pretty big names, if not being a big name herself. So being able to wrestle with her when I can is always a blessing. Just seeing her grow as a performer, and I feel like every time her and I step in the ring together, there's always some type of magic too. So just seeing people like Mackenzie start from the beginning and see where they're at right now at their peak is really cool.
That's great. And and I feel like especially with you too, what I'm learning talking to you here is that a lot of people might not have been too familiar with you until recently, seeing you on like Dark and NWA, which I'll talk about in a little bit. But you really are almost like an elder statesman here as far as talking about the people that you've worked with who definitely we should be seeing from in the future. So it's just a really kind of great thing to see there. Um,
Oh yeah, thank you.
now both of your title reigns, they were kind of extended. I don't want to say marred, but extended because you held them during the beginning of the COVID pandemic. And obviously we've kind of come out of that a little bit. But how does wrestling in front of crowds now, and especially when crowds first started, come back compared to what it was like in the before times?
Man, it's crazy because I think even though in a way COVID's kind of over, it still is affecting a lot of people. For instance, there was a couple shows last month that I was supposed to have that got canceled due to just different insurance policies that buildings have to have now because of COVID. And there's certain shows that still aren't able to really perform or have big crowds at yet just because of COVID in different states and all of that. I'm happy to see that, certain places are able to grow and extend and expand and everything like that. But before COVID, it's weird to even think like before and after, but before COVID, it was crazy. Like there were some times where we didn't even have enough chairs, certain places were just packed and people standing and ended up folding up chairs just to make room for everybody. And I mean, we still have that now. It's just COVID kind of puts a lot of pressure on certain areas, I think, right now, because a lot of people still are pretty scared and nerve-wracked about it. But we're starting to get there, I think. I think we're seeing light at the end of the tunnel, so hopefully this time next year it won't be an issue anymore.
In my first event of more than like 5 or 10 people that I went to after COVID, it was an independent show, and it was in a gymnasium, and it was kind of the same thing where I think a lot of people were just glad to kind of get out, and I was like, this feels right seeing this, but it was kind of the same thing where there wasn't I had to actually stand because it was like bleachers in the gym, and they were pretty full, so it was pretty exciting to see that.
Oh yeah, for sure. And like, I don't know whether the crowd like hates me or loves me. I feel like between the fans and the wrestlers, we're all just one big like nerdy misfit family. We go to have a good time and be loud and be reckless. So being able to have as many fans as we can in attendance enjoying the show is always a good feeling to be able to have that.
Right. Yeah. I always think of it as if they hate you or love you, at least they're reacting. It's a lot better than if you can hear someone's individual conversation because nobody's reacting, but getting some kind
Right.
of reaction is kind of what it's all about, one way or another. Um,
Right.
Now, the first time that I guess traditional wrestling fans would have seen you would have been in August of 2017. You were on in SmackDown against in a match against Tamina. How does a booking like that come about, and what is that experience like?
That booking came about just, putting in the work and being annoying pretty much and just knocking on the door continuously until they let you in. I was super grateful to be able to get that opportunity. I got to be a part of WWE a couple times doing backstage stuff, but that was the first time I got to do like an actual match, and that was really cool. It was SmackDown. I grew up watching SmackDown, so being able to be a part of that, not to mention being able to wrestle with someone like Tamina, was really, really cool. Definitely, in a way, a dream come true because WWE was, the first show that I ever watched that made me want to wrestle. And that's pretty much where my heart's always lied. So being able to have that kind of opportunity really was eye-opening and makes you hungrier to want to go back and just do better.
Yeah, definitely, and it certainly is always a great opportunity there for stuff like that. I've had people like Lady Frost on there whose debut was actually on doing a similar shot on Raw. But you also mentioned that you had done other things for them over the years, like backstage. What kind of things would you do?
Um, just more or less being like a backstage person while they did certain scenes. I got to do a No Way Jose entrance a couple times, so that was pretty cool. But yeah, just random little like here and there things.
Okay. The past or present, who would your dream match be with?
Man, probably have a few. Lita is definitely one of them. I would love to be able to work with Beth Phoenix, Natalia, Mickey James. Um, as of right now, I would absolutely love to be in the ring with Nikki Cross. Um, I would prefer her to be the crazy hyper running around screaming Nikki Cross
Right.
just because of my character. I feel like that would be a lot of fun. I would love to get in the ring with Rosemary as well, just again for the character personas. I feel like that would be a really cool mixture. And Abaddon from AEW. She's another one that, I'm a huge fan of them, and I feel like we would definitely have some fun for sure.
Yeah, those are all people that I think would complement your style pretty nicely. Is there anyone that you've had the opportunity to work with that when you got the booking you were like, wow, I can't believe I'm going to get to work with him?
Yeah. I got to work with Angelina Love. We did a singles match, and then I got to work with her in like a rumble for OVW. Always being able to learn from her is really cool because she's very generous. She's very sincere, and just wants to help out the newcomers and really help build you up. I've got to wrestle with Stu Young, which is always amazing. Stu is an incredible performer. I've got to work with Lindsay Snow in also the same Rumble. I would love to be able to work with her in a one-on-one match for sure. Lindsay's another one that's just very terrific in the ring and very clean, and she knows what she's doing. And I'm pretty sure, like, pretty much any crowd that she's been in front of, whether they were familiar with her or not, as soon as you see her, you're like, damn, she's a badass and she's coming to wreck shit. So being able to be in the ring with her for a little bit was really cool. Hopefully, one day her and I get to do something one-on-one. But, yeah, I mean, there's so many men and women that I've got to be in the ring with that I'm really grateful that I got to learn under.
Yeah, I actually recently was talking with Angelina Love about coming on the show, but communication kind of fell through. So it's good to hear that you she was kind of like your first answer to that question.
Oh, yeah.
Out of those or other ones, what is the, do you have you had a match that you would consider to be your favorite?
Oh, man. I feel like there's a few, honestly. The time that Sue and I wrestled, I think just at that point in my career, I was at a pivoting point where I was kind of stuck trying to figure out who I was, and I think that match really opened my eyes to who I was. So I'm really grateful for that. If I didn't have that match, I don't know character-wise or like headspace-wise where I would be. I think from the beginning of that match to the end of that match, I definitely transpired into a whole new version of myself. So that's probably one of my top ones for sure. I can't think off the top of my head, but I know at least one or two matches with Shauna is probably up there too, just because Shauna Shauna forces the best parts of me out, whether I want them to be out or not. And her and I always tear the house down every time I'm with her. her and I got to do a match in July in Michigan for Rhino's show, and it's terrific. Like, the atmosphere there is very ECW vibe. It's a really cool show, and me and Shauna got to perform there, and the crowd loved it. Like, I don't think they really knew who to cheer or boo at that point. They were just really entertained, and Shauna got to do one of her new finishes on me. So, I mean, that sucks, but that was also really cool. So just being able to just break down barriers with different women is really cool.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I'm loving about these last few years is seeing the total, it's the term WWE uses, but the total evolution of women's wrestling from even where we were in like the early to mid 2000s to what we're seeing now. It's just such an incredible time for it. I always look at, you mentioned Victoria and Mickie James earlier. I look at people like them and, like your Trish Stratus's and people like that who, were at the time a little bit more, I guess, eye candy for lack of a better term, but were just incredible talents. Just what would they be able to do in, today's era? And it's just mind blowing to me a lot of times.
Oh yeah, wrestling never ceases to amaze me. It's like every day I get to witness something or hear something that makes me more amazed by it. And it's definitely an incredible sport for sure.
Yep. So, what's something that this is a kind of a little fun question a lot of people seem to enjoy. What's something that even those in your closest inner circle would be surprised to learn about you?
I'm really trying to think. I don't know if it's like surprising or not, but I'm a huge animal lover. I love animals way more than I love people. I'm really big on rescuing animals, and more so, I don't know what it is. I always said that I'm like the emo version of Snow White, so I call myself Summer Black when I'm at home. But all these animals seem to come to me, whether I'm going to a show and I find an animal, or I'm on like a hike or something and I find like a wounded animal. But I always end up taking animals in and trying to make them better, and either keeping them or rehoming them to somebody else. But huge animal lover.
And my dog is a rescue, so I definitely understand that.
Oh yeah.
So a large part of your career has been on in and out of, and mostly through OVW. And for everyone listening, if OVW is not on your local cable network, it's available for free on Fight. What's the experience been like in OVW, especially when you take into account the legacy of the promotion going back to, Jim Cornette and Danny Davis running it in the early 2000s to what we're seeing on it currently?
OVW, they bring in a lot of good talent and have really good matches. With it being Al Snow running it right now, Al Snow, obviously, his credentials are there. He's been doing this forever. He's a great talent in himself, but he's also a really good teacher. And being able to learn underneath him is such a cool experience, because he's one to not be afraid to tell you, hey, that sucks. Don't do that again, or hey, that looks really good, you need to do more of that. And just between him and some of the talent, men and women, that he has on the show, he knows what he's doing, and he has a lot of good talent on the show. So being able to see OVW grow since it started, and then just throughout the years and stuff like that is really cool. I know Al has a really good mindset with his company and how he wants it to be shown, and it seems like he's doing just that. So I would definitely stay tuned, because I feel like they're going to be just scratching the surface.
Right. Yeah, I watch it when I can. There's so much wrestling; it's kind of hard to keep up every week. But every time I do,
Yep.
It's not a thing where it's like, well, I gotta sit through the show, and it's never like that with OVW. Some shows maybe it is, but never OVW. But
Yeah.
what are some of your favorite lessons that you've learned from Al?
Man, like, don't be afraid to look weird. And I know that sounds like so strange, but like, for instance, Al Snow, like, one of his biggest things that he's known for is carrying a mannequin head around, asking people, what does everybody want, And we've had to, we were able to have some really cool seminars. Like, for instance, Scotty Too Hottie came in one day, did a seminar, and he said similar stuff that Al always tells us, like, don't be afraid to try different things. Don't be afraid to be weird and stand out, because that might be the thing that actually gets you a job. Like, Scotty Too Hottie danced and has a finisher called the Worm, where he does the worm across the ring, and it's one of the biggest reactions I've ever heard from a crowd before. So just being told over and over again, take your time, really try to expand as much as you can, and don't be afraid to be different, because that might be the thing that catches everybody's attention in a good way. So being able to be told that time and time again, just be comfortable with being uncomfortable, has really stuck with me, and really makes me think every time I go out there, okay, don't be afraid to do this, and just soak it in and just see if it works.
Yeah, I was speaking with one of my friends recently about the Worm, which a lot of people may not even realize that was a popular dance of the era, but more people know it for the Scotty Too Hottie's move than the dance that was popular in the time. So it's kind of funny how that kind of stuff works out. And a lot of those lessons obviously have paid off, because you've been noticed. Lately, we've seen you on AEW Dark, match against Julia Hart. And every time I talk to someone who was booked on Dark, I'm always kind of impressed by, or I'm interested in the process. So, what is the process of booking and the experience for that like for you?
Absolutely amazing. I got the call up kind of out of nowhere. I wasn't really expecting it, and as soon as I got the call up, it was life changing for me. Just because when AEW first started, that was always something I had a target on. And I was like, man, I feel like this is somewhere where I could really see myself at and really be able to show my character. And for a while before AEW, I always envisioned that if certain companies were still around, where could I really see myself? And like WCW and ECW were two really big companies that I always kind of wish were still around, because I feel like just the atmosphere there, I feel like that's where I could really grow and be able to perform. But since those two companies aren't around anymore, when AEW came out, I was like, wow, this might be it. This might be the company to be able to have people like me on. And just seeing the show, on TV and in person is just amazing. It's a different kind of atmosphere. It really brings back memories of old ECW crowds and WCW crowds, and that might be just a mixture because of the talent they have, or just the diehard wrestling fans that go to AEW. But being able to be a part of that locker room and just be a part of that show that night was absolutely amazing. And I definitely did not take a second of that for granted. I was really, really happy to be there, and hopefully I'll be able to go back.
Yeah, I'm yet to see that show live, but I'm hoping to hit the one in October in my area.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I definitely would highly recommend going, regardless of what shows they have. Between the talent and the crowd, you will leave very, very happy and probably partially deaf, because it's super loud. It's like a rock show there, so you'll have a good time if you go.
So everyone I've talked to who had been booked through on the Dark said that they got the call from QT Marshall. Is that who you got the call from?
No, they have a few different agents that run some stuff up there. I got in touch with one of their other agents that contacted me.
And also recently, we've seen you twice on NWA. The first time, I really want to talk about you wrestled a singles match against the women's champion Camille. And I think Camille is one of the top talents in the world right now. I thought that was incredible, and you had a very good match with her. Took her out there a little bit. What's that experience like working with such a talent who, quite frankly, is a little bit intimidating too, like Camille?
Oh yeah, well that whole experience in itself was awesome because I've always wanted to be a part of NWA. Just pretty much having my family grow up watching NWA, and then me studying, Dusty Rhodes and Ric Flair and the Four Horsemen, all of them being at NWA at one point and being able to be there as well is just mind blowing to me. And then being able to wrestle Camille was intimidating for sure. That girl is like super tall, super jacked, knows what she's doing, but that's another thing too. You always want to get in the ring with people that are going to bring the best out of you, and Camille definitely did that for me. Hopefully her and I can do something again. But all around, just like AEW, like I was super grateful to be there and just get the experience and be able to say that I got to wrestle for NWA not once but twice. And, my first singles match was against the women's champion. I think that's pretty cool. So,
Yeah.
NWA and Camille, they're both great. I have nothing but good things to say about them.
Of all the shows right now, I think NWA is the one that I enjoy the most on an ongoing basis. But I saw Camille at a convention a couple years ago, and it occurred to me that that name Brickhouse isn't just clever; it's a fact when you're talking about her.
Oh yeah, no, she's 100% a brick house, and it's funny too because a lot of people have different monikers or nicknames, and you can kind of tell when they're in the ring, but out of the ring you're like, I don't really see that being fit. But Camille, inside and outside the ring, is a brick house. You can't even deny it. She's huge and very, very intimidating and very empowering. So it makes sense why she's the champion. So really, really inspiring to be able to work with someone like Camille.
I also love that the thing that she's doing where she just says one time because no one's ever going to beat her. And if you saw
Oh
the
yeah,
if you saw NWA 74 last week, she had an absolute banger with who was it, Max?
yeah, yep,
And I mean the night before she had a
yeah.
banger with Taya Valkyrie too. So I mean like just two
Oh
nights in a
right,
row just
yeah.
killing it.
Yeah,
Um,
oh yeah, and they're all great performers. So it's cool to see that they're tearing down the house whenever they're able to like get the platform.
and then the following week, you were also on the show in a tag match against the women's tag champions of Pretty Empowered, Ella Envy and Kenzie Page. What was that like? And you talked about your first match, singles match there was with their champion, but you've had two matches there and both against champions.
Right. So I don't know if that's a sign that maybe one day something will come of it. But being able to work the tag champs was really, really cool. Me and Kenzie kind of have a little bit of history. She a few years ago won a tournament for Emerge, and it was originally supposed to be her and I facing each other for the Emerge Women's Champion, but then COVID happened, so we weren't able to do that. So being able to be in the ring with her for a little bit was really cool. Kenzie's another one that I really hope to be able to share the ring with one-on-one one day. But, they're doing great as far as a tag team. They really have good ring chemistry, and they feel each other out. And they remind me a lot of me and Shauna, where they don't have to say too much. They're always on the same page, and they're both great performers. Jay Lee, my tag partner, I've known Jay Lee for years, and Jay Lee's another one where looking at us, you wouldn't expect us to be as close or on the same page because we're polar opposites. But me and Jay Lee, we've always had each other's back since day one. So being able to have that experience with her was really cool.
Yeah, it was, and it was kind of like an impromptu if you're watching the show. That wasn't an advertised match, but it just sort of happened. And seeing it, it's like, oh, look at that. 2 weeks in a row, there she is.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And circling back to the AEW Dark Match with Julia Hart too for a second, like, and I meant to say this when we were talking about it, but against a character like Julia Hart, part of House of Black, is kind of again one of those that just sort of seems to work with your persona.
Yeah, that was really cool being able to get that opportunity to work with someone that is also kind of dark, moniker, and sinister almost. To have that be my first experience for AEW Dark was really cool. I see Julia being one of those that really gets comfortable in what she's doing, and I see her rising as well. The crowd absolutely loves her right now and everything she's doing. And I mean, before we even got into the match, the entire crowd lit up and really seemed to be intrigued by our match before it even started. So being able to have that was mind-blowing.
Right. Yep. And that's one of the things I really enjoy about AEW is that, if you're watching like WWE, they have the developmental show on NXT, but you have such young talent on AEW that you have the veterans, but you almost have like developmental and everything else kind of like mixed in there because you have people like Julia Hart who, what is she, like 20, 21 years old? Dante Martin's still very
Yeah,
young. A lot of their talent is very young and kind of like almost like we're watching them learn on the job every week.
right. And like in a way that's a cool experience too, being able to learn like that in front of that big of a crowd and on TV, because you obviously are gonna learn, and you're gonna make mistakes, but being under that kind of pressure, I always say that.
Right. And I mean, like as a show as a whole too, like they're learning, making mistakes as far as like production and stuff like that. The whole show is kind of like it's polished, and then they're also learning at the same time. So it's really a neat little dichotomy. Now,
Yeah.
NWA, they record several weeks of program at once. So how is that process, and how does it differ from the other bigger promotions you've been in, such as AEW, WWE, and OVW?
It's a lot different just because when you're doing a specific show, you only have to worry about like one thing, like one match. But NWA, in a way, it's kind of nerve wracking because they tape weeks into one day. So you have the card and you're like, okay, I'm on, episode 1, segment 7, but then, 2 hours from now, I'm in a different segment for a different episode. So you really have to stay in tune and stay alert and keep the adrenaline pumping all day, because you never know if just something on the fly happens and they need a person.
I think I lost you for a second there.
Sorry, I'm on the road in my service. Uh,
Yep. Live podcasting, folks. Sorry, I think I have you back now. Now, what were you saying?
okay. Sorry about that. But no, it's a cool learning experience, just being able to stay on your toes the entire day, and knowing that you're going to be in multiple segments, but they're hours apart. So just it's a good learning experience, just being alert that entire time and just being ready for anything really that entire day.
We certainly hope that we'll be seeing you more on those shows so you can get used to that learning experience. Now, you just mentioned that you were on the road. Later today, you're wrestling for Summit Pro Wrestling's Labor Day Lariats. That's at the Hancock County Fairgrounds in Greenfield, Indiana. If you're in the area, you still have time to plan to make it out to that show. Tickets are available at just $10. Doors opening at 3 o'clock, and the first bell is at 4 o'clock. On this show, you'll be wrestling Don't Die Miles. Now, what can fans expect to see at this show?
Aggression. I've never stepped in the ring with Miles before, but from social media and just word of the mouth, they want to prove a point, and they want to prove a point getting in the ring with me, which I don't care who you are. That's just a mistake on its own. I'm not someone to be taken lightly. I'm not someone that you're going to make an example out of. I'm going to make you work for whatever you're trying to get. So, Miles is a really good performer. I've seen their work and I've seen what they're capable of, but they also have never been in the ring with me before. So this match will be pretty intense, but I'm excited for it, and I think the crowd will be really happy about it.
So if you're in the area, you definitely don't want to miss that show. And right now it's about 1:15. Plenty of time to make it out there. So come on. It's Labor Day weekend. You don't have to work tomorrow.
True. So hopefully we'll get a packed house.
Yep, definitely. Now, lastly, do you have anything that you'd like to say to your fans?
I'm really, really grateful that I've been doing this for as long as I have and continue getting endless amounts of support. Having, people that continuously watch me and listen to the podcast that I'm on and continue to come out to shows to meet me. I'm just really, really grateful to have the fans that I do and be able to do this as long as I have. So, hopefully I'll be doing this for the rest of my life or until I physically can't anymore. And having the support that I do is something that I wouldn't trade for the world.
Well, selfishly, I'll just say if you ever come to the Virginia area, that's where I am. I'll make sure to come out to that show and see you.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
All right, so everyone make sure to follow Hayley on their social media at Twitter and Instagram at Hayley_Shadows. That's Hayley. And Facebook at facebook.com/HShadows. Are those the best ways for a promoter to get in contact with you?
Yep.
Okay.
I'm really big on checking my social media for, bookings and podcasts and stuff like that. So those three would be the best three ways to get a hold of me.
And I can back that up because we completely booked this appearance through Instagram private messages. So,
Oh, yeah.
so on that note, I will let you go on and get onto your show. I just want to thank you for the time and thank you for coming on the show. And definitely anything else that you have coming up you would like me to promote, just let me know, and I'm more than happy to do that.
All right. Well, thank you. I appreciate it.